Speaking of the failing president, I look at what's happening every day, not just here, but now globally as the world rejects the World Economic Forum, socialist view of how things should be, and it reminds me of some things my dad used to say. One that he said a lot. I'll get to that in a moment. But let's start here. Joe Biden began assaulting America's role as the sole superpower the moment he entered the Oval Office. His first dangerous move, of course, was to cancel the Keystone XL pipeline, though that was largely symbolic. But what he did and what he started was an attack on American energy that was real, an attack on American energy independence, and it gained a lot of notoriety. Remember, we were energy independent under Donald Trump. And Joe Biden has been gutting American energy ever since. And as the prices skyrocket, he blames the former president. Then he blames Vladimir Putin. Then he blames you for not buying a brand new $60,000 electric vehicle. Senile Joe then rammed through a completely unnecessary $2 trillion spending plan and called it the American Rescue Plan, when really it's been the opposite. It's been the American road to ruin, triggering inflation that none of us have ever seen. None of us. You see, if it were measured like it was in the 1970s or 1980s, the inflation rate would actually come in at an eye-popping 17% plus, but they've cooked the books for years. Joe Biden says the inflation is not as bad as you think. In fact, he says the economy's doing great. Did you know it? Economy's doing great. Trying in his feeble way to convince you that everything is just fine. Which brings me back to my dad, who has been gone a number of years now, but when I would point out something that was going wrong or some issue maybe I was dealing with, he'd just look at me and say, choices, Steve. People make, or better yet, choices, Steve. People make choices. His point was simple. When you make bad choices and you continue on making bad decisions, you're going to get bad results. Doesn't matter who you blame. Those choices are the ones that you made. You made those choices, brought you to wherever you are. Joe Biden has chosen to attack American energy, leave the southern border wide open, flood the country with uncontrolled spending, attack the Supreme Court, flirt with World War III by taunting the Russians and flaunting American military gear in Ukraine, and sucking up to the Chinese while he weakens the U.S. military and pursues the most ridiculous socialist policies in the name of, well, God only knows what. Choices. But Joe Biden is not the only one. No other world leaders are making bad choices. And we are now seeing the result. Other leaders, like in the Netherlands, where Dutch farmers are saying no more and dumping milk, meat, and produce on the ground while blocking traffic after being attacked by a hostile, overreaching Green New Deal government. A government that says it will take their land and their livelihood, saying they will forcefully cut up to 40% of all livestock living there currently. The farmers have had enough, and so have many more. Now it looks like the firefighters are joining them, blocking the streets. The same angry sentiment is spreading now to Bulgaria and Macedonia. There are also reports now that Argentina, the citizens there, are rejecting the failing socialist plans and telling their political leaders to go to Cuba if that's what they want. Go to Cuba if that's what you want. We've already seen the Canadians push back once, and instead of recognizing his population is ready to stand up, Justin Trudeau is threatening to crack down even harder. We'll see where that goes for the upstart tyrannical leader. Choices. Of course, there are personal choices too, like Joe Biden choosing to sniff girls on an all-too-regular basis. Is that really a choice? Could be automatic. But how about his son Hunter choosing to do drugs and spend millions, yes, millions on drugs, fancy hotels, gourmet food, hookers, of course, and everything else. And now limp Joe is putting all of his eggs, his shriveled up eggs, in one little basket. Abortion, which won't get him anywhere either. It's all true. I want to start with Bite 11 here today. I'll start with Bite 11. Joe Biden in November of 2021 lied about the damage his reckless maneuvers were going to do to the economy, this choice that he was making, and then talked about entry-level jobs and how great they'll be for America. Entry-level jobs. Bite number 11. Bite number 11. Go.
My effort to combat climate change is not raising the price of gas or increasing its availability. What it's doing, it's increasing the availability of jobs. Jobs building electric cars like the one I drove at the GM factory in Detroit last week. For the hundreds of thousands of folks who brought one of those electric cars, they're going to save $800 to $1,000 in fuel costs this year. And we're going to put those savings within reach of more Americans and create jobs installing solar panels, batteries, electric heat pumps, jobs making those clean power generating devices.
What Joe Biden promised was prosperity. Prosperity. Yeah, he promised that we were doing fine. That inflation was no big deal. That we would all be fine. But then, of course, we saw the increase in gasoline prices and oil. And it continues right now. Now it's come back down to about 25 cents a gallon. But that was part of what I told you they were doing, conditioning you to understand and accept $5 gasoline. I heard my own kid say, gosh, gas is cheap. I looked, it was $4.75. I said, that's not cheap. He said, well, compared to $5.20. I said, well, I'll give you that, but it's not cheap. When Joe Biden took office, where I live, gas was $2.25. It has more than doubled since Joe Biden took the Oval Office. Diesel fuel, the same. And here's the thing. We all rely on diesel fuel, whether we buy it directly or not, because everything in America has moved that way. And America thrives on vast quantities of cheap energy. Without that, my father always said that too, without vast quantities of cheap energy, this country would be in big trouble, big trouble. And we certainly are. Again, you look at the inflation rate. As I've been telling you for a while, if it was done the same way it was done in 1980, for example, if it was done the same way it was done in 1980, for example, our inflation rate now would be 17% plus. This is why Joe Biden's disapproval numbers compared to his approval numbers are almost 20 points underwater on average. We'll make it there this week. We will. Joe Biden will be 20 points upside down on the average of the polls. 58-38, somewhere in there. 58-37, maybe even higher, I'm telling you. His approval numbers continue to go down. There were 3 in a row, 36, 37, 36 from major polling companies at the end of last week. Nobody's buying this anymore, Joe. Where's my boy Hunter? I think you're in the clear. No, I don't think he's in the clear. Neither are you, sir. Quick break. I'll be right back.